The video opens with the city already asleep, lights flickering across empty streets as the camera glides toward a towering glass building. Inside, the billionaire Raymond Cole pushes open the door to his private office, irritated after a long meeting. But before he can switch on the lights, he freezes. A tiny silhouette is wiping his desk with slow, careful movements. The lights flicker on, revealing a girl no older than 12, her clothes slightly worn, her small hands trembling as she tries to scrub out a stain on his expensive walnut table. She doesn't notice him at first. She's humming softly, focused, almost desperate to do the job perfectly. When she finally senses his presence, she jumps backward, clutching a little backpack to her chest like a shield. Raymond's expression shifts from annoyance to confusion as he tries to make sense of why a child is cleaning his office at nearly midnight. The moment lingers in silence, pulling the viewer in with the unanswered questions. Who is this girl? Why is she here? And what is she hiding? The story then widens, showing the polished world Raymond lives in, his influence, his reputation for strict discipline, and his belief that every rule must be followed without exception. He is a man who built his empire by expecting perfection from everyone around him. On the opposite end is the girl Mira, moving quietly through hallways where she clearly does not belong, clutching her backpack as if everything she owns is inside it. She doesn't speak unless spoken to, and even then her voice barely rises above a whisper. The building staff knows her presence as a rumor. A ghost-like figure who appears only during night shifts, but no one really knows who she is. As Raymond watches her, he notices the exhaustion in her eyes. The way she forces a smile and apologizes even though she's done nothing wrong. Something about her presence unsettles him. Not because she's breaking the rules, but because her existence in his spotless world doesn't make sense. This contrast sets the foundation for the unfolding mystery how a billionaire's neatly controlled life is about to collide with the hidden struggles of a child who carries a story far heavier than her small frame suggests. Raymond Cole pushed open the door to his private office, expecting the same spotless silence he always demanded. Instead, the soft sound of rubbing cloth drifted through the dark room. He frowned and turned on the lights. There, standing beside his polished desk, was a small girl wiping its surface with slow, nervous strokes. She couldn't have been older than 12. Her worn-out sneakers squeaked as she quickly straightened up, startled by the sudden light. Her eyes widened like someone caught stealing, though she held nothing but a damp cloth and a tiny backpack. "Who are you?" Raymond asked, his voice sharper than intended. The girl clutched her backpack tightly, as if afraid he might take it. "I'm sorry," she whispered, stepping back. "I'm just cleaning, sir." Raymond stared at her, trying to understand. He never allowed children in the office, and his cleaning staff worked only in teams, no exceptions. "Where is your supervisor?" he demanded. She shook her head, too scared to answer. Behind her, a small plastic bucket sat filled with murky water, proof that she hadn't only just walked in. She had been working quietly, efficiently, invisibly. Raymond, a man who built an empire by controlling every detail, suddenly faced something he didn't understand. A child in his office at midnight, working like an adult, trembling like she expected punishment. He crossed his arms, studying her more closely. Her face was tired, her hands rough from repeated scrubbing, and her eyes held a fear far older than her age. For the first time in years, Raymond felt something he hadn't felt in his perfectly organized world. Confusion mixed with concern. He knew rules were being broken, but the biggest question remained, why was she here at all? Raymond walked around the office slowly, his gaze fixed on the girl who stood frozen near the corner. She avoided eye contact, staring at the floor, as if looking up was too risky. Her silence made the room feel heavier. "This building has strict security," Raymond said carefully. "People don't just walk in." The girl nodded. "I know, sir." "Then tell me," he continued, "how did you get past them?" She hesitated, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. I came with my mom." Raymond narrowed his eyes. His building's cleaning staff worked in pairs during the night shift, but he had never once seen a child among them. That alone put him on alert. He stepped closer, and she stepped back, clutching her backpack even tighter. He noticed a frayed zipper, patches on the fabric, and a small name tag scribbled in faded ink. "Mira, is that your name?" he asked gently. She nodded quickly. "Yes." She was polite, too polite for a girl, her age another detail that bothered him. Raymond walked to his desk and pressed a button on the phone. "Send the cleaning supervisor to my office immediately," he ordered. Mira flinched. He turned back toward her. "You're not in trouble?" he he said, though his tone was firm. But I need to understand this. Mira bit her lip, her breath unsteady. Raymond watched her carefully, noticing how her thin shoulders rose and fell in uneven breaths. He suddenly felt the urge to offer her water, but stopped himself. He didn't know this kid. He didn't know her story. But something was wrong, anyone could see that. And Raymond Cole was not a man who ignored problems, especially not ones happening inside his own building. As he waited for answers, his suspicion only deepened. The cleaning supervisor arrived in a hurry, confused by Raymond's late-night summons. When he spotted Mira, his eyes widened in panic. "Sir, I can explain," he began. Raymond raised a hand. "Start talking." The supervisor swallowed hard. "This is Mira. She's not officially on staff. She helps a mother." Raymond frowned. "This building doesn't allow children on shift. You know that?" The supervisor nodded nervously. "I know, sir. Her mother injured her leg weeks ago. She can't move fast. Mira just tries to help so her mother doesn't lose her job." Mira's breathing hitched, and she quickly shook her head. "Please don't fire her, sir. It's my fault. I told her she needed rest, but she can't work alone. I only help a little." Raymond's expression shifted as the pieces slowly connected. A child assisting her injured mother in secret? At night, in a corporate building. The idea sounded unbelievably, yet Mira's trembling form made it painfully real. "Where is your mother now?" he asked. "Cleaning the 12th floor," Mira whispered. "She thinks I'm sweeping the hallway." Raymond shot the supervisor a cold stare. "You knew about this?" The man lowered his head. "Yes, sir. I told them it wasn't allowed, but they were desperate. They never caused trouble. They just tried to finish the shift quietly." Mira stepped forward suddenly. "Sir, please don't be angry with him. He tried to stop me. I asked him not to tell anyone." Her voice cracked slightly, as if she carried guilt far heavier than her small frame. Raymond didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked at Mira's hands, saw small cuts. The redness from scrubbing chemicals, and felt something shift inside him. This wasn't misbehavior. This was survival. And for the first time, he wondered how deep her struggle truly went. Raymond escorted Mira and the supervisor to the security room. The guards looked confused, but obeyed when Raymond requested footage from the past week. As the recordings played, Raymond leaned in, expecting to confirm some kind of violation. Instead, what he saw left him silent. The footage showed Mira appearing night after night, always quietly, always in the background. She carried tools twice her size, filled buckets, scrubbed floors, picked up items dropped by others, and even helped her mother climb stairs when her injured leg gave out. There were moments where she wiped her mother's forehead with a cloth, moments where she fixed a broken mop, moments where she arranged supplies neatly as if she took pride in the work. And she never complained. Not once. Raymond watched scene after scene, Mira pushing a heavy cleaning cart, Mira hiding behind a shelf when supervisors walked by, Mira giving her mother a piece of bread from her backpack. The recording zoomed in at one point on her backpack being opened. A few school books, a pencil, a folded picture of a woman, her mother smiling brighter than Mira ever had in person. Raymond felt his throat tighten unexpectedly. "She's been doing this for weeks?" he asked softly. The supervisor nodded. "Maybe months?" "Sir." Mira kept her eyes glued to the floor. "We didn't want trouble," she whispered. "We just needed enough money for rent. But then Mama got hurt, and the shelter was full, so we did whatever we had to." Raymond let the footage keep playing. Every new scene showed another layer of the child's struggle. Her determination, her silent bravery. She didn't act like a child forced to work. She acted like someone trying to save her family. For a man who thought he'd seen everything, Raymond realized he had never seen anything like this. Raymond led Mira to a small conference room and gently closed the door behind them. He took a seat not as the strict billionaire but as someone who finally wanted to understand. "Mira," he said softly, "tell me what's going on." She hesitated, then slowly sat down across from him, her backpack resting on her lap. "We used to live in a small apartment," she began. "Mama worked here for almost 3 years. She's always been strong. She never complained about anything." Mira's voice trembled as she continued. "But then she slipped on the stairs during a shift. Her knee got hurt really badly. She tried to keep working, but she couldn't walk fast anymore. The supervisor said she could stay on the job if she finished her tasks on time. So I started helping." Raymond leaned forward, listening without interrupting. Mira twisted a loose thread on her sleeve. "When Mama's medical bills came, we couldn't pay rent. We lost our apartment. The shelter sometimes has space, sometimes doesn't. Some nights we sleep in the supply room downstairs. I know it's wrong, she whispered, but it's warm and safer than the streets. Raymond's chest tightened. Why didn't you ask for help? Mira looked up, her eyes glassy but determined. Because it was our responsibility, sir. Mama says strong people don't wait for others to fix their problems. They keep trying. Raymond felt an unexpected sting of emotion at those words. In school? He asked carefully. Mira looked down. I go when I can, but sometimes I'm too tired after work. The room fell silent. Mira wasn't asking for pity. She was explaining her life the same way someone might describe the weather: simple, factual, unavoidable. And somehow, that made it even more heartbreaking. Raymond finally realized the truth. This child had been carrying a weight no child should carry. Raymond sat quietly after Mira finished speaking, her words echoing in his mind like distant memories knocking on a locked door. He hadn't thought about his childhood in years. He had buried those days under layers of success, meetings, and responsibilities. Yet now, watching Mira hug her backpack as if it were a lifeline, memories he'd long ignored flooded back. He saw himself as a boy, living with his mother in a cramped apartment, trying to survive on her small salary. He remembered nights watching her clean offices until her fingers bled, refusing help because she was too proud to complain. He remembered skipping meals so she could eat. Strength isn't measured by wealth, his father had once told him before disappearing from their lives, but by how you lift others when they fall. Raymond had forgotten those words, or maybe he had chosen to. Mira's story forced him to face the truth. He wasn't so different from her. He had once been the child hiding behind poverty, hoping someone would finally notice. Maybe that's why her presence had unsettled him so deeply. He stood and walked toward the window, staring out at the glittering skyline. Every light represented a life, a story, a struggle. He had spent years focusing only on profits, schedules, efficiency, never people. Mira, he said, turning back to her, you shouldn't be doing this. You deserve safety, and school, and sleep. Mira didn't answer. She simply held her backpack a little tighter, as if preparing for bad news. Raymond felt a pang in his chest. He knew what had to happen next. Not as a billionaire, but as a human being who finally remembered what compassion felt like. Raymond escorted Mira to the 12th floor, where her mother was struggling to mop the hallway while leaning heavily on the wall. She looked exhausted, her leg wrapped in a worn bandage, her breathing unsteady. When she saw Mira beside Raymond, her face turned pale. Mira, why are you here? She whispered, trying to straighten up despite the pain. Mira ran to her, helping support her weight. Mama, I'm sorry. He found me in his office. Her mother's eyes filled with worry as she turned toward Raymond. Sir, please, don't fire me. My daughter was only trying to help. I told her to stay in the hallway, but Raymond raised a gentle hand. I'm not here to fire anyone. Mira's mother looked shocked. Then, why are you here? Your condition needs medical attention, he said. You shouldn't be working like this. She immediately shook her head. We can't afford doctors right now. I can still work slowly. Just give me more hours, sir. I'll manage. Raymond felt his heart twist. Even now, she was trying to protect her job. Your daughter shouldn't be working at all, he added softly. Mira's mother swallowed hard, tears gathering. I know. I never wanted that. But when you have no home, no family, no one to ask, you do what you must. Mira clung to her mother's arm. Mama, he saw the videos. He knows everything. Her mother covered her face briefly, embarrassed and overwhelmed. Raymond took a step closer. You don't need to be afraid of me, he said. But you do need help. Real help. For the first time that night, Mira's mother lowered her guard and allowed herself to hope. Raymond guided them to a quiet meeting room and motioned for them to sit. Mira's mother hesitated, unsure, but finally took a seat while Mira sat beside her, holding her hand. Raymond spoke calmly, no longer as the intimidating CEO, but as someone who cared. I've heard your story. I've seen the footage, and I've listened to Mira, he began. No child should be working at midnight, and no mother should have to hide her injury just to survive. Mira's mother lowered her gaze. Ashamed, Raymond continued, I want to help you properly. Not temporarily, not halfway. Mira blinked in confusion. Help? How? Raymond pulled out his tablet and placed it on the table. I can give you a fully furnished apartment starting tonight, rent-free for 6 months, and after that, heavily discounted. Mira gasped softly. Her mother's eyes widened. Sir, we could never repay. It's not a loan, Raymond cut in gently. It's a chance. He then turned to Mira. You'll return to school every day. No more night shifts, no missed classes. I will cover your supplies and uniforms. Mira's hands trembled. Really? Yes, he said with a soft smile. Then he faced Mira's mother again. You will receive paid medical treatment through my company's insurance. And when you recover, I will arrange a light-duty position that doesn't require heavy labor. Silence filled the room. Then the tears came first from Mira's mother, then from Mira herself. She threw her arms around her mother as her voice cracked with relief. Mama, we don't have to hide anymore. For the first time, Mira's mother looked up at Raymond with gratitude instead of fear. Thank you, sir. You have no idea what this means to us. Raymond simply nodded. Everyone deserves a chance to stand again. The next day began like a different world. Mira woke up in a warm apartment, the first real bedroom she had slept in for months. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, washing the room in soft gold. Her mother lay in the next room, resting comfortably after her first proper medical check. And for once, Mira wasn't waking up to a cleaning shift. She was waking up for school. She stood in front of the small mirror on the bedroom wall, adjusting her new uniform. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, crisp, and hers. She slipped her notebook into a backpack, now patched neatly, and strong thanks to Raymond S., Staffen smiled proudly. Downstairs, Raymond's driver waited to drop her at school. Mira shyly thanked him as she stepped inside the car. At school, she walked through the gates nervously, unsure if she still belonged, but her classmates smiled. Her teacher welcomed her back warmly, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was part of something normal again. Meanwhile, her mother attended her first physical therapy session, supported by a company coordinator who made sure she understood every step of the recovery plan. In the afternoon, Raymond quietly checked on the family's progress from his office. He wasn't doing it to feel good about himself. He simply wanted to ensure the family he had unexpectedly met was truly safe. Later that week, Mira gifted him a hand-drawn picture. A tall building, a smiling girl, and a man handing her a key. Achi the Bulton, she wrote. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. Raymond placed the drawing in a frame on his desk. His office had never felt warmer. Weeks passed, and life settled into a new rhythm for Mira and her mother. Mira excelled in school. Her teachers praised her discipline, her kindness, her determination. She stayed after class to help others understand difficult lessons, already showing signs of the future teacher she dreamed of becoming. Her mother's recovery progressed steadily. She learned to walk with less pain, her strength returning day by day. When she finally resumed work, it was in a safer, more comfortable role in the administrative wing. No heavy lifting, no low nights, no hiding injuries. Raymond occasionally visited the new apartment complex, checking on their well-being with a quiet humility. Mira always greeted him with a bright smile, running to show him her newest drawings, school awards, or stories she had written. He listened attentively, finding unexpected joy in watching her grow. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mira and her mother invited him for dinner. It was a simple meal, rice, vegetables, and a small dessert. Mira insisted on preparing herself. They ate together like a family that had found each other by fate. After dinner, Mira handed Raymond a letter. Please read it later, she said shyly. When he returned home, he opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten message. Dear Mr. Raymond, thank you for helping us when we had nothing. You didn't just give us a home, you gave us hope. I promise I will study hard and become someone who helps others the way you helped me. At the bottom was a simple line that struck him deeply. You changed our world. Raymond set the letter down, feeling something he hadn't felt in years, a quiet, steady happiness. And as he looked out at the city lights, he realized something profound. Sometimes, the smallest people carry the biggest strength. And sometimes, a single act of kindness can rewrite an entire future. As weeks turned into months, the building that once echoed with the quiet footsteps of a frightened child now held a different kind of story, one of recovery, growth, and second chances. Mira no longer wandered silent hallways with a bucket and rag. She walked confidently through her school corridors, her backpack filled with books instead of cleaning tools. She no longer hid behind shelves when adults passed. She raised her hand in class, eager to learn, eager to try. Her mother, too, transformed. The The limp in her step slowly faded as her treatments continued, and with each session she moved closer to standing tall again, not just physically, but emotionally. She no longer feared every knock on the door or every question about her job. She worked during the day now, in a position filled with dignity and safety, surrounded by co-workers who knew her story and respected her strength. Meanwhile, Raymond often found himself thinking about the night he first saw Mira in his office. He remembered her trembling voice, her worn backpack, the fear in her eyes. And then he would look at the picture she had drawn for him framed on his desk, and he couldn't help but smile at how far she had come. He didn't think of himself as a hero. In fact, the more he learned about Mira and her mother, the more he believed they were the ones who had shown him what courage looked like. Their resilience had awakened something in him that years of business meetings and success had slowly buried. Compassion, responsibility, humanity, things he once lived by but had forgotten. One evening, after leaving a long board meeting, he looked up at the city skyline, glowing against the night. Somewhere out there, Mira was finishing her homework, dreaming without fear. Her mother was preparing dinner, no longer worrying about eviction notices or painful night shifts. Their world was different, now safer, brighter, fuller, and as Raymond stood there, he understood something simple but powerful. The greatest impact isn't always made by grand gestures or massive donations. Sometimes it's made by noticing the person no one else sees. Sometimes it's made by asking one question: do you need help? And choosing to act. Mira's life had changed. Yes, but in a quiet, unexpected way. So had his, because helping them had reminded him of who he once was, who he could still be, and what it truly meant to use his success for something meaningful. The story didn't end with a rescue. It began with hope, and it continued with a promise that kindness, no matter how small, could reshape a future. As the lights of the city shimmered below, Raymond whispered the words he never thought he'd say, "I am grateful I walked into that office that night." And somewhere across the city, a little girl with a fierce heart and a bright smile was proving that sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin in the unlikeliest places, and that a single act of compassion has the power to change more than one life.